Today we're going to be using equivalent fractions to help us answer some word problems. In this video, you're going to see how to solve for an equivalent fraction and then how we can apply that to our use of word problems. If I'm given a fraction as I have here, 5/8, and I want to solve for an equivalent fraction with a number over 32, I need to figure out what I did to this first fraction to make it a number over 32. So I know both of my denominators, so I'm going to try to figure out how I went from 8 to 32. Remember, in fractions we can either multiply or divide. Looking at this first one, if I'm going from 8 to 32, I can say that I multiplied by something. Using your knowledge of multiplication facts or using a multiplication table to help you, you know 8 times 4 would be 32. So to solve for this question mark, I'm going to repeat whatever I did to the denominator to the numerator. So if I multiplied 8 by 4, I also have to multiply 5 by 4. And the answer here is 5 times 4, which is 20. We use that same process now to figure out this problem. So I want to know 7/9 is equal to 126 over what number? When you're dealing with larger numbers, having a calculator might be helpful for you. Again, we want to figure out which ones we know the same of. So I have two numerators. So I'm going to figure out what I did to the numerator on the left-hand side to get the new numerator. Because I'm getting larger, I can say that I multiplied, and I need to figure out 7 times what is 126. To solve for this, I'm going to use a calculator. So if I know I multiplied 7 by something, to figure out that, I can take 126, divide it by 7, and that tells me that I multiplied by 18. Let's double check our calculator to make sure that's right. So 7 times 18 does give me 126. So then I'm going to do the same thing here to my denominator. Okay. If I multiply it up top by 18, I'll multiply it down on the bottom by 18. So 9 times 18 equals 162. While you can use a calculator for this assignment, I want to make sure you're showing your work. So please show me what you're multiplying by and use a calculator to get that final answer. Let's apply this now to a word problem. Frances does 3 push-ups for every 5 sit-ups. Yesterday she did 21 push-ups, and we want to know how many sit-ups she did. So I can tell this is a little bit different because I need to write my two fractions. How I know that I can write these as fractions is we are familiar with this term for every as a common use of a ratio. So I'll start by putting this first sentence in fraction form. So 3 for every 5 sit-ups. For this, I would also encourage putting a label to the side so you know which each number represents. So 3 represents push-ups and 5 represents sit-ups. I'll just use an initial to represent those. This will be important so that I make sure I'm putting this last number in the right position. So I know that this needs to be equivalent to another fraction. And I'm going to input again this 21 in the push-up part. So that's the numerator here, 21. And so I want to know how many sit-ups. So I fill in with a question mark. Now that I have it set up, I follow the same process and I try to figure out how I went from my first fraction to my second fraction. Okay, so I know the two tops, so I'm going to go from 3 to 21. Again, I would be multiplying and using either a multiplication table or your knowledge of multiplication facts, we know 3 times 7 would be 21. And so to figure out this question mark, I will do 5 times 7. 5 times 7 is 35. Right? And because it's a word problem, we want to practice writing our answer in a complete sentence. So if it's asking how many sit-ups, we can say she did 35 sit-ups. Hopefully this video helps you guys as you continue to practice this skill.